Earlier in the summer, I made a huge video predicting what I thought would happen on the NHL standings, as well as who I thought would win the Stanley Cup in 2024. But a lot has changed since then, with a lot of news, a lot of trades to talk about that influence not just the standings, but also inflict a lot of pain upon my previous playoff predictions. A lot has changed, folks, and we got a lot of predictions to make. But where do I see your NHL team finishing in the 2024 season? Well, make sure you watch till the end for all the predictions, all the picks. Make sure that subscribe button if you're new, because so much hockey content is going to be coming out this next season that you won't want to miss. Now, compared to my earlier summer rankings and predictions, there's one team here that really changes a lot, and one team that went from a non-playoff team to a playoff team in today's predictions right before training camp that I'll explain when we get there. First, let's go on to the Pacific Division here and go division by division, team by team, predicting where each team finishes in the standings. And we're going to start out with the Pacific. At number 1, though, I still see it being the Edmonton Oilers. I see them getting 110 points this year. A little bit of a downgrade of what I saw them getting earlier, but I still think they're going to have a fantastic regular season and be one of the best teams in the West. In fact, the best team in the West in the regular season. That continued success, having Matthias Ekholm there for the full season, is going to be huge. Maybe we'll see that goaltending and Jack Campbell rebound a little bit on top of Stuart Skinner having another solid season. Hopefully we'll see that depth rise a little bit more with players like Dylan Holloway coming into the fold in a full season as well. Having the Oilers regular season wise, they're not going to have any worries. And really over the past couple of years, they've been pretty smooth sailing. Playoffs is a different story, but the Oilers should still be in a good spot. Now let's move on to number 2 in my Pacific Division rankings, and next up I'm going to go with the Vegas Golden Knights. I still see there being some Stanley Cup fatigue there. I see them getting 106 points on the season, not nearly as elite as they were last year in the regular season, but still one of the better teams in the West. And even though I still see some of that fatigue, I think some parts might actually be better than last season. I can see the goaltending being a little bit more healthy than it was last year in the regular season. That was something that really held them back a little bit. That defense is still going to be extremely strong. The systems there are incredible, and Vegas is bound for another great season, and we'll see if they have another cup in them. Next up, on to the 3rd spot in the Pacific Division, and getting the second to last playoff spot in the Pacific, I have the LA Kings. I see them getting 105 points here, right behind Vegas. And again, what I talked about before with the lack of goaltending, I thought that was something we maybe would have seen them address in this offseason, but that of course never happened, and looks like it's not going to happen. It seems like Copley and Talbot will be the tandem going in, which is definitely an interesting decision by LA for sure. I think that will hold them back in the regular season and likely the playoffs, but they'll still be a playoff team because of the forward and defensive strength. Now let's go on to the 4th spot in the Pacific, and to me, the last team in the Pacific to make the playoffs, and that will be the Seattle Kraken. Now, I don't quite see them being as solid as they were last year, going down to 96 points this year, so a slight regression, but I do see them still making the playoffs, still just barely squeaking in. And for me with the Kraken, the depth is still going to be great. That defense has some great systems with it and some great consistency as well, but I still have some concerns over that goaltending. We'll see if Philip Grubauer can be better next year. If he does, that might be one of the only reasons why they improve, if they improve. But unfortunately, in the Pacific, there'll be some pretty interesting teams that miss the playoffs. Going on to my 5th spot, I have the Vancouver Canucks, and I see them getting 93 points on the year, being solid, being better than last year, thank goodness. I mean, last year was a disappointment in almost every facet, but to me, the defense upgrades are going to improve the team quite a bit, and hopefully you'll see a rebound there in the goaltending with Thatcher Demko, hopefully having a really solid year. I do see him getting up to that level. We'll see if the forward group can stay consistent, and we'll see if the coaching is good enough to get them to that higher level, but to me, I have them just right outside the cusp in the playoff race. Next up at number 6, I have the Calgary Flames. I still see them getting 88 points on the year. To me, with this Calgary Flames roster, they have some great qualities and some players that will definitely bounce back, but I also think they might lose a little bit of structure that Daryl Sutter brought, even if that structure brought some huge negatives. Still though, because of some concerns with the goaltending and I think some lackluster depth, I have the Calgary Flames with 88 points on the year. Now let's go into number 7 and 8, and these teams will be in the dumpster in the NHL. There's no really doubt about it. At number 7 though, I'm going to have the Anaheim Ducks at this spot. I see them getting 65 points on the year, and I mean, they would already be crappy if there already wasn't some contention over if they'll sign Zegras or sign Drysdale or not, but because of those distractions, as well as just the team being bad, they're not going to be good. You could see sliver of improvement, but I wouldn't expect too much. And then coming in at number 8 to round it out in the Pacific Division, to me the worst team in the NHL this next year will be the San Jose Sharks, who I see coming in at 59 points on the year. Their goaltending is trash, their defense is trash. The forward group is okay. The top 9 is okay. It's all right. It has some good pieces. I like it. It's pretty good. It's pretty all right. Pretty all right. Defense is garbage though, goaltending is garbage, coaching is garbage. I really don't see much coming out of this team. Just hope William Eklund has a good year, honestly. That's all you can really hope for if you're a Sharks fan. Now let's move on to the Central Division here, and here is where things get really interesting, especially in the top end of the Central, because to me, it's still between Dallas and Colorado for that top spot. But of course, as a Dallas Stars fan, I'm not just saying this to be biased, but the Dallas Stars will be the #1 team in the Central this next year. I see them getting 105 points. Hopefully we see the best year that we've seen out of Jake Ottinger. Hopefully we see that defense stay a little more consistent. Hopefully Harley on the D full time will result in a lot more consistency there. And that four group is still great. You have Matt Duchene, of course, too, who is going to be amazing onto that top 6 for the full season. And I mean, Stars going to have another solid regular season, 105 points and top in the Central. Then going on to #2 in the Central, and this is where I have the Colorado Avalanche. I see them getting 102 points. Obviously, losing Landeskog for another year is going to be brutal for them, but they've managed in different times like that, and I think there might be some interesting resurgences in players like Jonathan Drouin. Hopefully, we see Bowen Byram have his first great full season in the NHL, but we'll see if that defense takes a step back. It was really great last season, but we'll see if the defense can hold. If that depth loses a step, though, like it looks like it might, then the Avs might be out of that first place spot. Now going on to the third place spot, and honestly, to me, 3 through 5 is kind of all over the place because I can see any of these teams switching. At #3, though, I'm going to go with the Minnesota Wild. I see them getting 98 points on the year. Now, to me, Kirill Kaprizov will lead this team in a lot of ways. Philip Gustafsson is also going to be huge for them, and I think that those two players will really carry them to a playoff spot here, but it's pretty thin. I could see the Wild missing the playoffs if that depth doesn't hold up, if that defense, it just doesn't have enough offense to offer. That could be something that holds them back quite a bit. We'll see with Minnesota in that crowded Central if they're left away by like a tumbleweed. I feel like for Minnesota, though, they'll still have enough strength in the forward group, at least on the top end with Kaprizov, to get there. Whether they have any playoff success there, I mean, it's not really a question. They probably won't, but we'll have to wait and see. Now on to #4, and of course, you guys know, it's my bold predictions. It's my last predictions video. Everybody knows that I'm predicting the Nashville Predators to make the playoffs, and I've explained this a lot. To me, it's the coaching. It's how close they were last season. I don't think a lot of people realize how close they were to the playoffs last season with John Hines as their coach. I think Jussi Saros is going to be in contention for the Vezina Trophy. I think Jossi's going to have another great season. We'll see Forsberg fully healthy as well, and those younger players really rising above in the four group. I think the coaching, though, and the systems are going to take them a long way, though, and I think they'll get 96 points on the year, like Seattle getting 96 points and being a wild card team. But now we have to go on to the teams that just missed the playoffs. And at #5, I have the Winnipeg Jets, who missed with 95 points, 1 point shy. And to me, this Jets team isn't weak whatsoever. You'll still have, of course, Scheifele and Hellebuck, it seems like, for the full season right now, unless we see something change. Maybe we'll see them trade at the deadline. That could be something that maybe puts them back a few points. But I think Winnipeg is going to be in a really tough spot because they will be so close to the playoffs. So I think there is a chance that they do keep him, and probably have to let him go into free agency, which would suck. But I still think for Winnipeg, they got a strong top 6. I think you're going to see Velarde really take a big step there. That defense could still use some adjustments, let's say. But I think they're in a position to hold over strong. I mean, Connor Hellebuck obviously will be Connor Hellebuck still, and that consistency will be key. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I do think they're going to be close like they were last year. Now at #6 and #7, these are the teams that I also have hot takes on. At #6, I have the Arizona Coyotes. I think a lot of people saying the Coyotes are going to be a basement team are going to be kind of surprised when they finish with an 80-point plateau. To me, that's where I think they will get this next year. And to me, with the Coyotes, it's not really crazy to see why. They made a lot of additions in this offseason that'll improve not just the forward group, but the defense as well. Especially that defense doesn't look all too great, but it's going to be a lot better than it was last season. And to me, with Arizona, I think they're in a weird position where they'll upgrade a lot. They won't be in the playoff race necessarily, but will likely be a lot more complete than a lot of people realize, and will have a lot of spirit too, which is going to be fun to watch. At #7, this is where I see the St. Louis Blues placing at 79 points. To me, that defense is brutal. To me, I think you lose a lot of top-end scoring just in general with that team, though Pavel Buchnevich being healthy will be a huge marker. To me, even though I see Joel Hofer coming in and being great as a rookie, we'll see how great he is. I don't think he'll take Binnington's job, but I'm not sure how much that fixes things completely. And the coaching has at least been a little bit stale over the last year. Berube had that contract extension, but really the Blues haven't had a ton of success the past couple seasons. I see them declining again this next year as that defense and just some of the four group gets older too. Now on to the last place team in the Central though, and it will be the Chicago Blackhawks. I see them getting 93 points on the year. To me with Chicago, I think they'll be a little bit better. Of course, with Connor Bedard being there and lighting it up as a rookie, that'll be great to watch, as well as Taylor Hall being added onto there. Hopefully Lucas Reichel has a full season, but the depth is still going to be meh, and that defense is still one of the worst in the league, and the goaltending is maybe the worst in the league. I mean, Peter Mrazek and Arvid Soderblom. I mean, Soderblom could be something maybe, but Peter Mrazek as your starter heading into opening night, that's not going to get you many wins. I'm sorry, Chicago, but I don't think they're splitting any hairs. That's exactly what they want to be. Now let's move on to the Eastern Conference here, and let's start out with the Metro Division. At number 1, like I said before, I have the New Jersey Devils. Now, maybe not as strong, but I see them still winning the President's Trophy of 112 points. To me, with the Devils, I think there's still a lot of signs of improvement. I think that goaltending could be even more consistent with hopefully Akira Schmid being there full-time as a solid backup there. Of course, we got Timo Meier for the full season. That's going to produce a lot of physical and goal-scoring attributes there too. I don't think they really lost a lot of depth in the offseason. Some guys that, you know, were solid for them, like Ryan Graves and Tomas Tatar, but nothing that's going to be really all that bad for them, especially with players like Luke Hughes coming in and Dawson Mercer taking next steps. To me, of New Jersey, it's just going to get better and better as that young core gets better and better. Now on to number 2 in the division, and right behind them, I have the Carolina Hurricanes, who I see getting 108 points on the season. To me, there's no doubt the Canes will still be a great regular season team. We'll see how much playoff success there is there. They were right there knocking on the door this last year and then failed completely versus Florida, but we'll see if they can make the necessary adjustments. I think they'll be a little bit worse than the regular season in general though, as I see maybe some of the 4 groups still being a little bit lackluster for them. We'll see what happens though. They're still going to be a great team, and the structure they have is still among the best in the NHL, if not the best in the NHL. Now on to number 3, and at this spot, I have the New York Rangers. A lot of this is fueled by Igor Shesterkin having a rebound season after last year. That to me will be a big reason why they still have a pretty comfy spot inside the top 3. But for New York, I could see some regression, at least in the top end players, with players like Chris Kreider maybe taking a little bit of a step back. But we'll still see. I mean, that top 6 still has a lot of weapons. That defense is still looking solid, and hopefully we'll see Keandre Miller rebound as well. Some really interesting players here, and still some elite ones that I think will carry them into a playoff spot. Next up, coming in at number 4 and going on to my only wild card team in the Metro, and like we talked about before in the last video, I have the Pittsburgh Penguins at this spot. Now, in the last one, the Erik Karlsson deal hadn't happened, and I was just assuming if it did that I would have Pittsburgh in the playoff spot, but now we have the Erik Karlsson deal, and we can now have that to go off of, and to me with Pittsburgh, that was humongous for them. I see them getting 99 points on the year, being the first wild card team, and to me, I think we could see maybe a better season out of Tristan Jarry. To me, the goaltending might be the thing that needs to improve the most, but with Erik Karlsson on that defense, sometimes offense is the best defense, and Erik Karlsson being added on will be really interesting. I think that'll rejuvenate a lot of that core there. Jake Guentzel being injured for the start of the season is brutal, but I think the Penguins will overcome it eventually with Riley Smith being added on. I think that's a great addition for them in the 4 group, and I think he'll be pretty solid there and consistent throughout the season. Now let's go on to the teams that missed the playoffs here, and it's pretty sad because I think this team actually has a pretty interesting core here, and that is the New York Islanders. I see them finishing at 95 points in the year, being one of, if not the best team to miss the playoffs. To me, with the Islanders, you're still going to see Elliotte Sorokin lighting it up and being fantastic. Hopefully we'll see that defense a little bit more healthy, and that could also be something that shows a little bit of improvement. To me, though, the 4 group is just going to be kind of a jumbled mess. We'll see how they're able to fit it, how they're able to keep it consistent. To me, though, it's not so much the Islanders being a worse team than they were last year, but more so teams in the Metro getting a little bit bulkier, especially with Pittsburgh adding some major additions that I think kind of keeps the Islanders outside of the race for. Now on to number 6, and this is where I had the Columbus Blue Jackets last time, and this is where I'm going to keep the Columbus Blue Jackets. I see them getting 87 points on the year, and yes, the Mike Babcock stuff is a distraction now, but I think by the time the Blue Jacket season is underway, it will be okay, especially, of course, with Vincent coming in. I think that'll be a better addition in the long run, and I think the Blue Jackets still have a lot of additions from this offseason that'll help them a lot, and hopefully we'll see that defense be at least competent. I mean, if it is competent, then the Blue Jackets are in a much better spot. Still, though, even though they might be in the race, I still see them not really being too serious of a playoff contender. Now at number 7, next up I have the Washington Capitals, a team that I just see on the outside looking in for another straight season. With Pittsburgh, they made huge additions that hopefully will stay healthy and stay consistent, Riley Smith and Erik Karlsson. With the Capitals, they had Max Pacioretty and Joel Edmondson, and to me it just doesn't really leave a lot of inspiration. With an already old core, you're bringing in older players that have also suffered a lot of injuries, and to me, I just think it's going to be brutal for him. Alex Ovechkin, of course, is going to score a bunch of goals, and it seems like that's the only priority right now, in Washington because the roster ain't looking too hot. And then coming into the last place spot in the Metro Division, I have the Philadelphia Flyers. I see them finishing with 63 points, but really, how are they not? Like, this East is just insane. It's incredibly crowded. Philadelphia, especially as we see some trade deadline subtractions eventually and inevitably, Philadelphia will be still in the rebuilding tier like they should be. I mean, we've asked for so long for Philadelphia to be this bad. They're finally doing it, and hopefully they get a top 3 pick. Now on to the last division here in the Atlantic, and next up, let's go on to the #1 spot, and I'm going to have the Toronto Maple Leafs again here. With the Leafs, I think it's kind of their division to lose at this point. I see the Bruins regressing, same thing with teams like the Lightning and the Florida Panthers, and to me, I think for the Leafs, it is their division to lose. If they don't win the division this year, I don't know what's going on over there. It has to happen this season, and I see them getting 108 points in the year. That 4 group will still be electric. That defense could be interesting. We'll see how they fit in John Klingberg, but I do have a lot of hope in Samsonov and Joseph Woll to carry that goaltending in a big way next year. And I think we'll see them have a very consistent season, which will be a breath of fresh air after some really interesting regular seasons the past few years for them. Now on to #2, and next up I have the Boston Bruins. Here's the thing though, to me with the Bruins, they are the worst second place team out of all of these divisions. I see them getting 100 points on the year, and it's just really a symptom of the crowdedness of the Atlantic. And that also goes against the Leafs points a little bit because that Atlanta just has so many tough competitors that will steal a few points away from you if you aren't careful. But for the Bruins, I still think they'll be a playoff team pretty healthily. Yes, losing Bergeron and Krejci sucks, but I think their center depth will be okay. It'll get through. That 4 group, though, loses a lot of weapons, and that could be something that goes against them. But that defense is still incredible. That goaltending is still the best tandem, most complete tandem in the league. And to me, I don't really have many questions over if they'll be a playoff team. It just depends how far they'll go. Now on to #3 here though, and this is where we start to see a little bit of changes because so far there hasn't been any changes in the teams that I see making the playoffs and missing the playoffs, but spoiler alert, the Atlantic is different. Because starting with one of my first changes from last time's rankings and predictions, at #3, I have the Tampa Bay Lightning. I see them finishing at 97 points on the year, and this is really fueled by Andre Vasilevsky still being great. I see a little bit of a rebound season on Victor Hedman, though. We'll see if last year was just a tired year out of him, like some may have been reporting. That might be the case for Hedman, and he might be back in a big way next year, which would be huge for Tampa. Even though that depth isn't amazing, they replaced some players like Alex Coloma, players like an Isiman and Sherry, who could come and be a little bit younger, which could help them in the regular season for sure. And I still see them being great. I still see them being consistent at 97 points there. But here's where the big changes come, folks, because coming in at #4 for the second wildcard spot in the Atlantic, I have the Ottawa Senators. Now here's the thing, this is another one that is pretty dependent on what we see from this team going forward. If they're able to sign Shane Pinto pretty soon, like during training camps or hopefully within the next week or something, then to me, I will keep this position. If they're going to be without Shane Pinto though for the start of the year and well into the season, that makes things a lot more complicated for them in that bottom 6 and creates a lot of problems that should really be avoided. But to me, if Pinto's on this roster, to me, I think they will be a playoff team in the Atlantic, getting 95 points on the year. I'm more and more optimistic about Jonas Korpisalo's position as a starter in Ottawa. That defense is looking a lot better with Sanderson, Machikarin, and Shabbat, hopefully all fully healthy all together for a full season. Same thing with Artem Zub. That 4 group, that top 6 is still great. To add, of course, Tarasenko onto that, and Dominic Kubalik, and hopefully Shane Pinto is there for the full season, which would make that top 9 amazing. To me, with Ottawa, they have a lot of great qualities. We'll see if the coaching holds them back, though. I'm still kind of hesitant on if DJ Smith is the guy, but any good coach would get this Senators team into the playoffs. We'll see if DJ Smith is the guy to do that. He should. If he doesn't, hopefully he's finally fine. But now going on to the teams that I think will miss the playoffs in 2024. Next up, let's go on to #5, and this is where I have the Florida Panthers. I see them getting 92 points on the year, and the more I think about it, the more we've also heard about Ekblad and Montour's injuries and how long that could keep them out. It kind of makes me a little bit more pessimistic on their chances. To me, with Florida, they're still in a solid position though, but regular season Bobrovsky isn't nearly as crazy as what we've seen with playoff Bobrovsky, and that could be something that holds them back. I think that defense, of course, without Mondor and Ekblad, has a lot of different players, sure, and a lot of decent ones, but we'll see if it's able to actually come together as a unit with a lot of new phases. That's a concern of mine. Of course, the depth is a little bit lacking after you lose a couple of guys, even though you still have some great top-end talent. To me, with Florida, though, we'll see how much Paul Maurice is able to carry them, because, I mean, the coaching will need to be seriously important, especially at the start of the season, for Florida to have good chances. A lot of Florida's season depends on those first couple months. If they come out strong, then a playoffs will hopefully await. Now on to number 6 and number 7. At number 6 here, I have the Detroit Red Wings, and I see them finishing at 90 points on the season, and to me with Detroit, they still have a few things to hold them back. I'm not exactly extremely confident about that goaltending still. Ville Husso still needs to prove that he can be a consistent starter all the way through a season. That defense has a lot of names, a lot of okay guys, just like Florida, but we'll see if guys like Sherrod can turn a page, Justin Hull in a first season. There's a lot of guys that I think need to be better than their reputation really withholds them, and the depth has improved quite a bit within the forward group, but we'll see if that top end scoring is able to be there. Will DeBrincat have a rebound season? Will Lucas Raymond be the forward we need him to be if Detroit's able to make the playoffs? I think for Detroit, though, they're just going to be outside, but will obviously be a little bit better than they were last year, which is still a sign of improvement. Next up, though, let's go on to number 7, and here is where I'm going to have the Buffalo Sabres. I see them finishing at 89 points on the year, just being behind the Detroit Red Wings, but to me, with Buffalo, they're in an interesting spot. It was one of my hottest takes from the last video, saying that Buffalo would miss the playoffs, but we started to see some more people come out and say it too. Dom Luszczyszyn, I'm pretty sure, was predicting the Sabres as well outside the playoff race, but to me, I know I'm pretty outspoken in that. To me, I'm not exactly convinced about that defense still. Connor Clifton is a player that haven't really seen the results out of. We'll see in Buffalo's system if he's better than that. Losing Jack Quinn for the first couple months is brutal, and some of that forward depth I don't think was really replaced, and the goaltending is a huge wild card. Sure, Levi was great last year, but not many rookie goaltenders have come in the full starter job and have been elite already, and we'll see if Levi is built different. So far he has been, but I think it's a lot of expectations for a rookie goaltender, especially with the lack of support at all behind him. To me, that is a huge make or break. If the goaltending and Levi is able to surpass expectations, then they will be a playoff team, but I think there's a better chance than zero that it doesn't. At least in year 1, because we all know Levi is going to be a franchise face in goal for the Sabres, but we'll see if in year 1 he can rise up to those expectations immediately. And going on to number 8, I have the Montreal Canadiens. At 64 points, I see them improving in some ways, but also in the standings, because of how crowded the Atlantic and the East is in general, they're not really being much progress. Sure, you could see a better season out of Slafkovsky, you could see a healthy season out of Caulfield, and that's going to be great to see, but I also see, Montemo maybe taking a little bit of a step back, maybe not being as unreal as he was last year, saving so many different games. So we'll see if that's maybe a point of regression. With this Habs team, I mean, the biggest development will be within the players. As long as that happens, as long as they get a little more consistent, especially with the overall game, then for Montreal, that's a success. And if they get another top 3 pick, that's perfect too. Now, interestingly, with my standings predictions, we got a lot of really interesting matchups in round 1. Starting in the Western Conference, you got the Oilers versus the Kraken, which would be absolutely insane, so entertaining. You also got the Golden Knights versus the Kings in the Pacific Division. In the Central, you got Stars versus Preds. Then you got Avalanche versus Wild. Some interesting rematches of first round matchups beforehand. And then you go into the East, starting with the Devils versus the Senators. I mean, Jack Hughes versus Tim Stützle. You could sign everybody in the hockey world up for that. Yes, please, and thank you. You also go on to the Hurricanes versus the Rangers, another potential first round rematch there, and that one would be a lot of bad blood, especially if Tony DeAngelo is still on the Canes. Then you also got Leafs versus Penguins, which will be a fascinating matchup, as well as Bruins versus Lightning. So a lot of good matchups there. I want to know down below, out of all those, which one would you be most excited to see? Because honestly, out of all those, I mean, Oilers versus Kraken and Devils versus Senators are definitely up there. But let's fast forward here to the conference finals. In the West, I'm going to have the Dallas Stars versus the Edmonton Oilers. And in the East, I got the New Jersey Devils versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. I see the Leafs taking a little bit of a step up, winning not just 1, but 2 rounds this time. Whoa, crazy. I know. But I see the Leafs making that slight jump up ahead. As for the Stanley Cup final, though, I see the Stars beating the Oilers in 6 and the Devils beating the Leafs in 5 to force a Stars versus Devils Stanley Cup final. Now, you guys know, as a Dallas Stars fan, I generally have been a little bit more pessimistic on my Dallas Stars predictions, especially with the standings and the playoffs and everything. But, you know what? Enough doubting this freaking team, all right? They went to the Western Conference Finals after I thought they missed the playoffs. It's about time that I finally do something that I actually have never ever done before in my entire life. And right now, September 2023, I am predicting the Dallas Stars to win the Stanley Cup in 2024. In 6 games, the Stars will defeat the Devils. Don't at me. I don't care if you think I'm biased. This is the first time I've ever done this. Let me do this, please. I mean, I imagine a lot of people predicted the Stars to get this position, to get to the Stanley Cup final, but dang it, I think they're gonna get it done, boys. Let's go Stars, baby. I know I'm risky talking about that and saying that and putting that out in the world, but I want to know your thoughts down below. What do you guys agree and disagree with? And let us know your Stanley Cup predictions. Who do you think wins it in 2024? And does your team make the playoffs or do they not? Let us know down below all your thoughts. Of course, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell if you haven't already, and share the video with all the hockey fans you guys know online. Get the playoff predictions out there. Click on this card for all my predictions content right on playlist, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you guys so much for supporting. I appreciate all of it. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more like this all throughout the hockey year. We'll hope to see you then and inside the Grab Gang for all of it. Thank you guys so much for all the support. Hopefully you have a great day. Drink some water, have some fun, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.